Welcome to TRN Podcast, episode 147. Today, we're looking at the newly formed coalition government in Germany, specifically the CDU and CSU roles, now that the coalition agreement's been approved.
That's right. The CDU Federal Committee gave the green light, and Friedrich Merz, who looks set to be chancellor, has unveiled his picks for the CDU ministries.
And out of 17 top spots, the CDU gets 7. So we want to give you a clearer picture of who these people are and, well, what these choices might signal about Germany's direction.
Exactly. It's about looking beyond just the names and headlines to understand the potential priorities.
Absolutely. Let's maybe start with a really key area, economy and digital affairs, or state modernization as they're calling part of it.
Okay, so Katharina Reiche is the name put forward for economy minister. She comes from West Energy, which is an E.ON subsidiary.
Right, and her background is heavily focused on energy, isn't it?
Very much so. She's been an MP, state secretary, headed up an association, even been a CEO. It really points towards energy policy being, well, front and center. Apparently, E.ON is releasing her from her duties.
That definitely underscores the importance. And who's supporting her?
She'll have Stefan Rönnehoff and Gitta Kahneman as parliamentary state secretaries.
Kahneman. She leads the Mittelstandsvereinigung, the SME association, right?
Yes, and she'll also be commissioner for small and medium-sized businesses. So that seems like a clear signal to that part of the economy.
A dedicated focus there. Okay, what about the other part? Digital affairs and state modernization? That's a new ministry, isn't it?
It is. And Karsten Wildberger, currently CEO of Seconomy AG, think MediaMarkt and Saturn, he's slated to head it up.
Interesting background. He has a PhD in physics and experience across consulting, telecoms, even E.ON.
Yeah, Boston Consulting Group, T-Mobile, Vodafone, EON. Quite the resume. He's apparently emphasized how vital this ministry is for, getting Germany modernized.
And things seem to be moving quickly. His contract termination at Seconomy.
Expected by May 5th, yes. So a pretty swift handover.
And his state secretaries.
Thomas Jarzombeck and Philip Amthor. Amthor was actually a key negotiator on cutting bureaucracy and state modernization during the coalition talks.
So you've got the business CEO and the political negotiator working together. Could be an interesting dynamic.
Definitely. It combines that sort of corporate efficiency mindset with the political know-how.
Okay, let's look at some other key CDU appointments. What about the foreign ministry?
Johann Wadephul. He's currently the deputy leader of the CDU-CSU parliamentary group, and this is quite significant.
How so?
Well, he'd be the first CDU foreign minister in 60 years. That role has often gone to other parties in past coalitions.
Wow, yeah, that's a big shift. And education.
Karen Prehn, who is currently the education minister in Schleswig-Holstein, her ministry is being expanded to include family affairs as well.
So that means 2 cabinet members from Schleswig-Holstein in Merz's team.
That's right. Prehn and Wadephul could suggest, maybe, an effort for regional balance?
Makes sense. And a really crucial role, head of the chancellery.
That's going to Thorsten Frey. He's described as a close confidant of Merz.
So likely ensuring close coordination right at the center of power.
Exactly. You'd expect a very tight working relationship there.
Now, health minister. That's Nina Worken.
Yes. And what's interesting here is, unlike her SPD predecessor, she isn't really seen as a dedicated health expert.
Oh, what was her focus during the coalition talks?
She was involved in the working group on internal affairs, law, and migration. So perhaps a different kind of focus or approach coming to the health ministry.
Something to watch, definitely. And transport.
Patrick Scheider, he's been an MP since 2009, served on the Transport Committee, and apparently got the best first vote result in his state, Rhineland-Palatinate, in the last election.
So experience in the area. And he has a state secretary, too.
Yes. Christian Hurrit from Thuringia will be his parliamentary state secretary.
Okay, besides the main ministers, there are also ministers of state, right, in the chancellery.
Correct. Michael Meister is designated for federal-state cooperation. Christian Schenderlein gets sports and volunteering. And Wolfram Weimer will handle culture and media.
Important coordinating roles. And in the Foreign Office.
Serap Güler and Günther Krittbaum from the CDU, and also Florian Hahn from the CSU, will be ministers of state there.
So, quite a team supporting Wadephul.
It seems like it, yeah. Covering different aspects of foreign relations.
Right, let's pivot to the CSU's share of the cabinet then. Who have they put forward?
Okay, first up is Dorothy Baer. She's lined up for Minister for Research, Technology, and Aerospace.
She was State Minister for Digitalization under Merkel, wasn't she?
She was indeed. So there's definitely continuity and expertise there, particularly on the tech and digital side of things.
Seems like a natural fit. and agriculture.
That's Alois Rayner. He's a CSU MP, and interestingly, a trained butcher by profession.
A butcher. That's unusual for an agriculture minister.
It is. Perhaps it signals a focus on, the practical side of food production, or maybe a closer link to the farming and processing communities.
Could be. And the final big CSU post-interior minister.
Alexander Dobrindt is expected to take that on. He's a very well-known senior figure in the CSU. Currently leads their group in the Bundestag.
Right. So a prominent established politician for a very sensitive portfolio. Suggests the CSU wants a strong hand there.
That would seem to be the implication, yes.
So after presenting the team, Merz also spoke about the government's priorities, didn't he? It sounded like he was managing expectations a bit.
He did. He acknowledged the hard work of the negotiations, but warned against too much euphoria. He mentioned declining trust in democracy, a weakening economy, social systems under strain.
And threats to Europe, both internal and external?
Exactly. He framed it as a working coalition that really needs to deliver results for Germany, Europe, and the wider world, especially for the economy and keeping society together.
And he promised specific shifts. I remember reading about migration and economic policy.
Yes, quite clearly. On migration, he mentions stricter border controls, more deportations, and pushing for a more restrictive EU stance overall.
So a definite change in tone there.
And economic. He warned against a trade war, particularly with the US and China arguing for open markets. He made that quite bold offer to the US.
The zero tariff agreement.
Yes, and mutual recognition of tech standards.
Yes.
Kind of a big pitch for transatlantic economic cooperation.
He also addressed the debt brake, didn't he? Defending the decision to loosen it.
He did. He linked it to the current situation in Europe and those transatlantic risks, calling it a necessary sort of leadership decision in difficult times.
And what about Social Security? Pensions, health, care, always big topics.
He stressed the need for reforms there. He admitted the coalition agreement was still a bit vague on the details, but he emphasized more personal responsibility and efficiency.
So signaling reform is coming, but maybe the exact shape is still being worked out.
That seems likely. And on climate and environment.
He committed to the goals, but hinted at a different approach.
Right. Less focus on bans, more on incentives was the message. A different path than the previous government.
Okay, so that's the plan for Merz. What have the initial reactions been like?
Well, Carsten Linnemann, the CDU General Secretary, sounded very upbeat. He expressed confidence, even predicted some positive surprises, and really backed Merz as the right leader for this moment.
Any critical takes?
An ARD commentary noted the strategic nature of Merz's appointments. It suggested some picks, maybe even controversial ones, were aimed at establishing a more distinct right-leaning profile for the CDU.
Loyalty was mentioned as a factor, too.
Yes, loyalty seemed key. And while there was an effort to represent different parts of the CDU geographically and ideologically, the commentary suggested some factions might be disappointed.
They also mentioned courage to leave gaps. What did that mean?
It pointed to appointments like Nina Workin in health, not necessarily bringing deep subject matter expertise, suggesting maybe a willingness to prioritize other qualities or shake things up, and it highlighted the huge expectations facing this government.
And from the CSU side, Marcus Söder.
He expressed a very good feeling about the personnel choices. So publicly, at least, the partners seem aligned on the team.
Right. So we've walked through the key CDU and CSU ministerial picks in this new German coalition. It really gives you a first glimpse, doesn't it? From energy with Reike to digital with Waldberger, foreign policy with Weitzel, health with Workin. You start to see the contours.
Absolutely. The emphasis on energy and digital modernization feels significant. And the promised shifts in migration and economic policy certainly signal potential changes ahead. It's a mix, isn't it? Experienced politicians, figures from the business world.
A diverse set of perspectives, for sure.
Yeah.
But as Merz himself pointed out, the challenges are huge.
No question. Declining trust, economic headwinds, social system pressures, geopolitical situation. It's a tough landscape.
How these ministers tackle these complex issues and actually deliver on the coalition's promises, that's going to be crucial for Germany. We'd certainly encourage you, the listener, to keep following these developments.
Yeah, think about the implications. Which priorities stand out to you? What questions are still lingering after these initial announcements?
It really marks the start of a new chapter. Staying informed feels more important than ever. Maybe a final thought for you to consider. Looking at this lineup and the stated goals, what do you think is the single biggest opportunity and perhaps the single biggest risk facing this new government coalition? Something to ponder.